So I want to talk today about a core question. In some ways, this is one of the most central questions in our modern world. We are faced in a world where we have access to so many more people and to the challenges that are faced by societal institutions that are far larger than ourselves. So the question we have is, for many of us, is how can we align the incentives we all face with their desire to help the public good, whether that's giving to charity, supporting others in need, or just simply acting in ways that make not only our lives better, but the lives of people around us better. Now, the question I'm going to focus on today is what specifically motivates us to act in a way that supports this public interest. Now, there's lots of theories of this, and it's impossible, obviously, in any format, but even especially in this format, to cover all those. But I'm going to summarize them as two big categories. One category are intrinsic motivators. So something about our feelings or what we sense in ourselves that pushes us toward a particular action. Now, this has historically been derided, but in the last couple of decades, economists have actually developed an idea called the warm glow theory of altruism. And this is basically taking concepts, including from psychology and neuroscience, to say that we're motivated by the internal sense of reward we get from helping others. There's also a theory that we are motivated, in fact, by what we see out there. So when we look and we see something that connects to social context. And it's not clear in many ways which of these is the one that's guiding our behavior. There's also our motivators that come from outside us, in the extrinsic world. So these include things like what sometimes is called pure altruism, or the desire just to make the public good exist. So if we give to NPR, for example, it's not necessarily the case that our giving is that last $30 that will keep NPR on the air. We give because we think that is part of our role in supporting a public good we care about. And then finally, we might give for other reasons. I mean, it's sort of sad to say, of course, but we give, in fact, because it signals something about social status. That we may give because it tells other people about something about us. Now, take these two categories. I presented them as sort of separate things. So one is what we feel about ourselves, another one is what other people, things out there in the world. And so it stands to reason that if we want to maximize people's actions toward a public good, we should do both. We should maximize intrinsic and we should maximize extrinsic incentive for people to engage in the public good. Let me tell you a story. So in 1993, the country of Switzerland was ramping up its nuclear power. And so they had a problem. They needed to put a nuclear waste disposal facility somewhere in Switzerland. Now, nuclear power at the time was extraordinarily popular. People believed in it. And so they asked people in one state something pretty straightforward. Would you support the disposal site for nuclear power being located in your state or canton in Switzerland? Now, what was striking was that often we think of these as not in my backyard issues. But in this case, about half of the people in the survey said they would support it being located in their state. That's pretty good, that people were willing to accept something for the public good in their state. But it's only half. So a natural prediction is that we should do something else. So for example, a second question was asked of people. Would you support the disposal being located in your state if every resident of the state was given an annual payment, and it varied across treatments, from $2,000 to $6,000? Now, so you have the same motivation as before, but now you're adding an external incentive on top, an external incentive on top of that. And here's what happened. The proportion of people interested in supporting the public good dropped by more than half. So the extrinsic incentive actually undermined the internal motivation to act in the public good. Now we know this happens in a wide range of circumstances. So historically in the United States, we actually paid people for giving blood. And it was recognized in the 1970s that our blood supply and rates of donations were inferior to those in Britain where they didn't pay people. We know from other studies that if you actually institute a fine for parents picking up their kids late at daycare, the rate of parents showing up late increases. And if we pay kids, we give them extrinsic rewards for reading or doing art, they decide art or reading aren't in their interest anymore. And they get less engaged by those activities. Across all these domains, giving people these external, especially monetary incentives, actually decreases their willingness to engage in the fun event. Now, I'll show you another example of this. It gives us some hint of what the mechanism is that establishes. So many of you might have had these sort of odd, like Casio digital watches, or if you didn't have one, as a friend of yours had one, then maybe on a junior high cafeteria. Have you ever played a little game where you're pressing the button and trying to get it to stop exactly on 1 second or 2 seconds? Okay? A lot of people nod their heads. This is actually pretty fun. Okay? To play the game, try to stop exactly on 2 seconds. And incidentally, they actually sell, what I'm showing up there in the corner, is a learning brand stopwatch. A stopwatch you sell to your kids, and the kids get to play that little stopwatch game. Start it, wait 2 seconds, and try to stop exactly at a certain point in time. So if you take young adults and have them play this game, and in this case you have them play the game in the Rise Scanner, and just have them do it for fun. So all you do is you tell them if they're doing well or not in the game. Then we get remarkable activation in a brain region called the striatum. This is one of the core parts of your brain's reward network. And it's there not when you're even getting rewarded anything more than just playing it for fun. You do it once, it works. They have these participants do it again, play the game again, have them play it again, it's still fun. You get these neural responses that indicate the brain is pushing them to engage in the behavior again. Now, that's expected. Let me show you what happens when you introduce an external incentive. So in another treatment, the researchers actually paid people to play the game. If they do well at the game, they earn more money. And that activates the brain's reward system extraordinarily well. But here's the key condition. Now, the same people who were paid to play the game are no longer paid to play the game. They're just doing it for fun. And what happens is the brain response goes away. So if you had just had them play for fun all along, they would find it a motivating game, they would continue to find it rewarding, continue to play it. Once you pay them, that intrinsic motivation goes away, and we can see it in brain markers. Now this has led us to have an idea in the literature now. There's basically 2 currencies that support our motivation. One of those currencies is economic or extrinsic. That helps us deal with things like goods, things we purchase, it has to do with money. It helps us deal with anything that we can consume and many things that we experience. But there's a second currency, and that currency has to do with our sense of self, our identity. And that second currency motivates us to do lots of things. It motivates us to play that little stopwatch game, it motivates us to pick our kids up on time for daycare, and it motivates us to act in the public good when we're faced with these large-scale problems like where does the nuclear waste enter. And that second currency can actually be damaged or undermined by the first. Now, I do want to mention one thing, that we talk about these as 2 currencies, and there are a few clever examples where people have set up incentives that actually reliably evoke both. And probably the best way to think about them is metaphorically, and it's like the Apple advertisement. So in the traditional Apple advertisements, there's a combination of product features, but also product identity. And of course, a TED Talk is like channeling, you feel like you're channeling Steve Jobs. You have to have at least one Apple thing, I think, in every tech case. That in some cases, we can identify examples where identity is tied up into the features, but that's extraordinarily difficult to set up. So the vast majority of things seem to fit well in one currency or the other. Okay, so I told you that economic incentives can actually undermine people's intrinsic motivation. Now, there's a way out though. And the way out seems to be to pull people away from thinking in economic terms and having them think in social terms. So we don't want to think about our decisions as transactions, but as relationships. Now, in my lab and in many others, we've been actually exploring this very issue. And we've identified a particular brain region, something called the temporal parietal junction, or TPJ. It's located back here in the parietal lobe. And that brain region seems to do 2 very important things. Functionally, what it seems to do is set up a social context for our decisions. So for example, in a study, we had people play poker games in the scanner against either a real person or against a computer opponent. And the 2 opponents play exactly the same way. They have the same basic strategies. They have the same rules for the game. But when people are playing against a human, only against a human, we show activation in this temporal parietal junction. And even more compelling, some of our players thought the human wasn't very good at the game. They actually say, well, we asked them afterward, who's better? Well, the computer. The computer was way better than that guy. And in those people, the ones that see the human opponent as somebody who's not very good, not very competent, this activation also goes away. So it's only there when you're interacting with someone who's meaningful for your future behavior. And you can see this in other contexts. You can see it in cases where people are shown a picture of someone. You show that picture and tell them it's a college student like you, there's activation in this region. Same picture, and you say it's a drug addict or a homeless person, and the activation goes away. This region seems to be involved in specifically setting up a social context for behavior. But that's not all it does. We also have studied this region in the context of these sorts of pro-social behaviors. And what we have found in brain function, and other people have found in brain structure, is that it's the best predictor of people's self-reported altruism. Now, how altruistic you are is associated with activation in a brain region involved with seeing things, and specifically seeing other people in social contexts. It's not associated with internal motivation, but it's evoked by what you see. Now, I just want to end with a quick story. Many of you know the fellow that's on the right here. His name is Wesley Autry. And he was famous about 5 years ago because he was a New York subway hero. He saw a gentleman on the track next to him who's seizing. Eventually, that gentleman falls onto the train tracks. And Autry, basically, who's holding his young daughters at the time, lets go of his daughters, jumps down the train tracks, tries to help the man out, can't. And then eventually pushes him down on the track, covers him with his body, and the train passes overhead. He saved this man's life with an amazingly heroic act. I mean, it gets chills every time I talk about it. But what's very striking is when we talked about his motivation for this, he actually said something really, really essential. He acted because he saw someone. He built a social connection with that person, even though it was very quick. He didn't do it because he thought about the consequences, and he didn't do it because he wanted to be a hero. He did it because he saw someone in need. And what I'm arguing is that seeing someone in need is actually the basic mechanism for engaging people in pro-social behavior. Okay, I'll stop there.